The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Me, it was Zoom this time. Okay, good. So Zoom went bye-bye. I'm sorry about that. We didn't lose anything, I don't think. Can you hear me, Robert? Robert, can you hear me? Oh, wait, I'm muted. My bad. I'm muted. Can you hear me? Is he able to hear me? Let me see. Virtual audio cable. Well, I'm thank you, Bloodbound. I'm glad you can hear me. Let me double check. Exit full screen. That way we can get it back to normal. Can you hear me? I'm hoping that he's scrambling to try to get his stuff working again. So, he can probably hear me. Guess I'm just. Hi. Oh, yes. Hey, Lady P. Yeah. We're working on some Android hacking. I can see you and I cannot hear you, cause I don't think you've said anything to me yet. Okay. Hello. This is the part of the show where Brian secretly starts sweating a lot, because, you know, it makes him nervous. To do these things. Let me double check and make sure. I'm pretty sure you can see me because I can see the UI. I'm not exactly sure what happened with the Zoom function though. So, excrement occurs. Yes, Lady P. Very much so. And now it says I have 0 viewers. So something happened. He dropped off. Okay. Well, this is the point where I'm going to have fun editing this later on. Okay. Oh, 1 second. Okay. So around me, yes. Worn out faces. Okay. Can you there? Okay. I can hear you now. I'm not sure everyone else can hear you though. So 1 second, I'm working on that. Go back to cable input and make sure the Zoom output is correct. I think it's probably that Zoom has dropped your audio capture bits because, you know, window. Yeah, the window was gone for this. So, all right. Okay, give me a sound check real quick.
Testes, you good?
Yep, that's good. Okay.
Well,
I think we're back.
Yes. I don't know about your stuff, but mine is flawless.
Zoom died, so
I totally did.
I don't know what happened.
Break the script.
Yeah.
This whole thing is about. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow, that red text is never good. Yeah.
I wrote to fix the keyboard so you can actually bang on the keyboard and it type stuff. And
really?
When I did that, it seemed to not. It's something about the encoding when you write a file out with PowerShell, and it like adds that weird old byte at the end, or does a carriage return in a new line, and for whatever reason, it doesn't like that very much. So I've recreated it in theory, and we should have a clean config that will actually start up and not gotta get angry. So we already got burp running. We're gonna start up the emulator.
Yep. So I'd like to thank everybody for their patience. I'd like to thank Chemist Security for resubscribing at level 3 support. It's so much helpful, pays for a lot of things that I have realized that I've been paying for out of pocket. So I do appreciate the support there, Chemisec, for all your support. All right. So,
I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah, you can subscribe or do whatever, or Amazon Prime subscribe if you'd like their operator. I wouldn't hate on it. It's completely optional though. I do this because I love people learning things, and glad that we can have makers like yourself on that are doing these kinds of things for us. Hello, that's some traffic. If I could, if I didn't have to chew the air out here, I'd be out taking a walk a little later. But yeah, for those of you in the Pacific Northwest with me, I feel your pain. So, but so is this emulating a specific handset? Because one of the things I do remember about Android Studio was you could say, I want it to be a tablet with this dimensions, or I want it to be a a Galaxy Pixel 1 or something.
Pixel, it's a Pixel 2.
It's a Pixel 2. Okay.
And I want to have a build prop button where you can just say whatever you want, and it will, to the best of my knowledge, like emulate that device.
Okay.
To make it easy. But I don't even know if that's even really necessary for most testing.
No.
But I think the flag that the build prop for this build says, like, I'm a developer, totally, this is totally a developer image. I think that might help against detecting stuff like that. So the idea would be to make the build prop be nice and clean and compatible, so that it looks like what it's supposed to look like. And because depending on what that says, I think that's how the Play Store works. So depending on what you said exists in the Play Store, that's how the image that's what gets presented to you on the Play Store, if my memory is correct. And I tried to do the build prop stuff before and get the App Store to actually show the right stuff in there, and I never could get that all figured out. But it would be nice to have it all happy. But in general, there's the Play Store. If it doesn't work on the Play Store, you can kind of do a hackadooey and just get the actual APK and run it that way. If you can manage to get the APK, that's really all the Play Store inevitably ends up being. To pull down the APKs.
Yeah, there's F-Droid, I think, is one of the big ones, but you can pretty much just search for the title of the application you want an APK, and I think that there's probably it's I wouldn't say it's caveat emptor because you're not buying anything, but definitely don't want to just willy-nilly pull down an APK and test it unless you're testing a deliberately infected app or something with malware on it. Then it might be worth the use. But F-Droid is probably one of the more legitimate third-party app stores out there that I have seen anyway. There may be others. If anybody else has any other ideas on that, just let us know so we can add those to the channel.
So I'm gonna start the emulator back up again.
Okay.
Try to make sure I've got root before we go to the next step, because I had to recreate ran step 1 again so I could recreate a good image, and now we've kind of lost our roots, so we might have to redo the install Magisk. But if I'm correct, when you install Magisk, it patches the system image file that gets loaded, and it has nothing to do with the Pixel, the ABD folder that the stuff gets dumped into here. The actual image for the Pixel itself sits in a different folder, and I think in one of these folders, system images. So that's what Magisk is modifying. It's modifying one of the image files in here, which I think is system image. So that's what's actually getting modified. So it's kind of half installed. That's why the Magisk icon is looks weird. But what we want is to let this thing install itself. Might have to just run the Magisk script again. We'll see.
Yeah, before Magisk come along and they started playing around by trying to do, checking for root or whatever, there was ways to hide root. And I guess that's what Magisk has become. It's like it hides the root binary so that, it doesn't get detected by a safety net or what have you. There's not supposed to be a root or a su or a pseudo binary on on the system. So the Magisk is going to, protect that or rename it or do some kind of jiggery pokery that makes it so that you can maintain root on the box. Now, when you shut this down and restart it, do you have to go through this whole process again? Because I'm thinking if I want to play Clash of Clans, I don't want to have to spend an hour building this thing again.
No, the idea is you do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 4, 6, 4, whatever, all the way to 7. Once you're done with that, you really only have to press 4 and do whatever you want. And then when it comes to hanking with apps, that's kind of the next step is what is the app checking for, how does it do what it's supposed to do, what are the detections in place it has, and how can you work around them. So I'll show you in a second here, and I might just start over.
So I posted I posted so Bloodbound asked if I don't want to be rooted, whatever reason. And I said, from what I gathered from you, it was step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you're done.
Yep, you're done. You got a
number 5 is when you root it with Magisk.
Well, number 5 is when you start walking out of the path of enlightenment, and into the world of all that.
There belongs to the dark side. Yes.
Right. So we should get some
You've definitely simplified the Android Studio process, because I tried. I installed all 25 gigs worth of that shit, and it's like I couldn't get anything working properly, or it was unstable as fuck. So
it's bad. Like when you install the Android Studio, it puts stuff all over the place. Like there's files all over the system, and user folders and user paths and like program files, and like throws stuff everywhere. The idea with this is that it's all contained in there. So if like this, something's all mangled, who cares? You start over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done, and it takes like 3 minutes to like completely start from scratch. And that's kind of the idea.
Okay.
So actually, what we will do is let me see if I can get ADB root. If I can get root, then we won't have to start from scratch.
Root.
Yeah, see, it's acting wonky. So I will just show you how quick it is and start from scratch, because it takes like a minute, if that.
Yeah.
Was it emulator? Yeah, kill the emulator.
So ADB emulator.exe, and then everything in the Jambo directory.
I'm just gonna kill all this because
minus Jamboree.ps1. The only thing you need to keep in this directory is the PowerShell script that you can pull down, and it does pull down a number of things, don't it?
Yes. AVD root, Python. And that's the cool thing about all of this, is that it's all inside of its own thing. Oh, we got Burp Suite running here still.
So Bloodbound asked the question, and I'm thinking the answer is yes, because PowerShell is available on Linux distros now. He's asking, can this be, or I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Bloodbound, don't know your pronouns. Could I run this in a Linux environment? I'm assuming, Parrot OS in this case, anything that could run the PowerShell Linux version should be able to run this.
You would want to adapt this as a shell script, but essentially it's all the same math. You're creating the license files. You would basically walk down the PowerShell script and just recreate that same thing within Linux. And Linux is a lot easier to really manage paths and stuff with Linux. And it's honestly, if you're running Linux, you're probably going to be able to do this easily anyways. This is more for I'm on a box. I'm sitting down in front of Sally's box, and she's got a standard Windows 10 image. Boom, I can start popping stuff pretty much instantly. The part that takes the longest is downloading the image files from Google, and it's still stupid wicked fast. So
don't try it over dial up, but you should be fine.
I use a different like .NET. I use the download because the .NET downloader is faster than the regular PowerShell downloader. But yeah, you can adapt this command line, one-liner ease of use to a shell script. You could pretty much make this a shell script that would do path checking and environment variable checking and set it all up for you.
Nice.
But the idea here is I kind of like, I have a similar project with Burp Suite. I have a similar project with Volatility, which is a memory analysis tool. It'll
Okay.
create, I need to update that with the NuGet version of Python because it wants to install Python and make a big mess out of
Yeah.
the computer. But I'm kind of big on making a single click thing that just like gives me what I want, especially in Windows.
Okay.
So
Well,
that's kind
so
of what I'm working towards.
that's a good question. So you mentioned volatility, which is memory forensics and stuff. So, what would you need to use volatility for when analyzing Android APKs? Is
There's
it for
there's a lot
malware?
of yeah, there's a lot of tools out there for like what do you call it, static analysis with Android. So like you
Okay.
just feed it an APK and it'll go and scan the APK for bad things.
Right.
As far as like memory stuff for Android, I don't know of any like forensics tools specifically for Android stuff. I mean, it's essentially a Linux environment.
Right.
Plus or minus all the Android ecosystem and all that mess. But I've
Right.
never really done any forensics on Android stuff before.
Okay. Okay.
But I would say there's a lot of tools out there already to analyze APKs, and that's not what I want. I want to see the traffic. I want to run a memory editor on them, which is included in the install base APKs.
Right.
Which the Game Guardian, it's China.com, but it will let you modify memory addresses and poke around
Yeah.
for kind of cheating on games and playing around with different games. So
No.
I'll show that.
Enhancing
Enhancing
games.
Enhancing games.
Game. Yes.
We're
No
testing.
cheating. Cheating's bad.
Well, I can't cheat on the good games. All the premium games
Right.
that those have been hacked so many times by kid in the basement. They're like more secure. Pay premium games are more secure than your bank's app at this point because all the kids are pounding on them 24/7.
I'm old. I play this game it's an open source game. It's called Andor's Trail. It's been around since, Android 3. Yeah. And it's an offline game, but it's like a roguelite kind of game. So it's not bad. And it wastes a lot of my time. So, and I can play it on a plane without, having to worry about an internet connection. But, so
they have some wicked mud clients for Android that are actually pretty cool. You can just write scripts straight inside of the Android client or whatever.
You're speaking Lady P's language with the muds and the moos. Yeah. The muds and the moos.
I just end up writing bots for them. Just are hilarious.
Yeah. Okay.
Was it the Legend of the Green Dragon had running? And then the guy that was running it at the office was like, "Hey, can you tell your thing to stop? Because like you're just running around like owning the whole server." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'm done." Like I obsessed with it for 2 weeks. I'm out. So
yeah. Bloodbound. I've had several emulators with ROMs too. Actually, what I was planning on doing was very similar to what Operator was doing. I was going to set up BlueStacks and stuff, and then maybe play some, Android games from, what I have on limited version, like some Sudoku or something, what all the cool kids are playing these days. And,
Wordle, but no, let's do some Wordle modifying.
Yeah. Wordle. Yeah. We'll Wordle the hell out of that. Yeah.
We'll just write a little Wordle. We can actually write a macro inside of Burp Suite that will like just solve Wordle puzzles for us. So like a Wordle comes in, it'll just be like, "What?" and it'll spit out the right response.
You're enhancing you're enhancing the game. Awesome. Yeah. Excellent.
We're solving the problem that is the game, right? I mean, that's all,
right.
That's all games are, is they're just problems.
It's a hurdle.
Patterns,
that's right. Yeah.
Right? Find the pattern.
Yep. So with this simulator, and I don't know how much you can actually do with this, but can you do things like simulate certain events on there, like maybe a low power kind of issue or loss of connectivity to make it do other things? Like, let's say it requires an internet connection, but you disrupt the Wi-Fi connection or the network connection such that it causes a failure. Is that part of how you would be testing the applications? Are there specific use cases you're looking for in that? Or is it just
you pretty much have root, so you can do whatever you want. You can run whatever crazy Java you want to run, whatever APKs you want to run, with ADB commands.
Right.
The cool thing about Magisk is it actually comes with its own embedded BusyBox, which gives you a lot more power within like the command line, within the ADB shell. So
including
you could do a
SSH.
lot more stuff that you couldn't do with the standard, like find command
Yep.
is like broken on Android,
Yep.
or like the PS command is missing all kinds of crap. So the thing that comes with Magic is actually, so now we're up and
Yeah.
running. I don't know what
Nice.
happened, or
Yeah,
what I
that's
broke
a
with.
different icon than what was on there originally. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I broke the image with that, trying to make the keyboard.
yeah.
So you have to manually click for now. I have to fix it again.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
So Bloodbound, when I mentioned SSH and you said, "Oh, I don't believe it's a full implementation of SSH." I don't think Drop Bear or whatever it is that is available in BusyBox will allow for things like tunneling or whatever.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
You can compile like the standard. I think they just like the just like the Play Store, different OpenG apps, they have different levels. I think you can do the same thing with BusyBox. You can say, I want the biggest, nastiest, giantest, bloated binary that has like all the bells and whistles. You have to compile it yourself, but I think there's pretty much everybody has written all kinds of modules for BusyBox where you can do all kinds of extra stuff that you wouldn't normally, but you have to kind of like, it's kind of like FFmpeg. Like if you download FFmpeg from the internet, like for Windows, it's only got like 1 million codecs in there. But if you want like all 70 billion codecs, you got to like use a little compiler for it. So we've got Magis, we've got that happy. We've shut it down. We started it back up. What we're going to do now is kind of make sure we have root, really. And we'll get that grant option, and that's what you want.
That's what you want right there. Grant
so
forever.
Now we're root. We know that we're able to do stuff now.
Oh, that's so sick.
And
damn it. Where were you 6 months ago when I was trying to figure out how to install Android Studio?
This came up. I have an old presentation I did with Knox that I had like a little zipped up Knox image that you would just extract, and then that had all the tools and everything on it. It actually had a personal Gmail account already embedded and enabled in there, so you could just extract the image and go. But I don't want Knox, and that was 10 years ago. So now I'm like, I want a legit thing to where I can just back it up, and there's no shenanigans, and I know everything that's in there, and I don't have to worry about like my whole launcher being straight up, adware. So we've got root, we've restarted it. What we want to do now is the hard part. We're going to take that certificate file that we pulled from Burp Suite. We're going to convert it to a PIM file, and then we're going to install a Magis module that will allow you to take a user certificate and install it as a system certificate. Now, there might be an easier way to do this without using a Magis module, but this is kind of the easiest way I've got it set up. So right now, without using OpenSSH.exe or OpenSSH, I have converted the file to the right file name, which is annoyingly hard to do. And there's nowhere else on the internet that this even exists. So it's like one little, basically, the cert util is basically OpenSSH, but for Windows. So you can do all things. You can like dump the certificate information. You can convert it from PIM to cert. You can dump out the information. And what Android wants is this weird. It's like it's complicated, but Android wants a really weird hash, and this is the one actually for Burp Suite today. So if you name your certificate this, it's going to be the right one. But the way I've designed it is that no matter what cert you put in here, it'll automatically get the right name hash for the subject line of the certificate and create it and upload it and do all that stuff. So we have our certificate.
Does it always end in .0? Because I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember. We have an audio podcast listening to. So it has a file name for. So when Robert set his directory stuff up, it was delete Jambo whatever. So your Jamboree directory will have a .0 file in it. Once you've gone in and generated your PEM file, ideally that's the file that you need to use to for your PEM for your system cert. And it's armored and everything. So it's if you open it up in a text editor, the .0 file should be what you need.
It's the PIM file is basically base 64 of the cert file and whatnot.
Right. But and it's ASCII armored. So
cert util, if I can find it.
Okay.
Cert push stuff. It's restarting in the background, so I was just going to show you the wonky stupidness that is the cert util function. Yeah, the cert push. This is the magic where it like takes the the certificate hash from the subject and then like
Right.
moves the bits around and it flips it backwards and does all kinds of weird
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
And names it the right name. It was kind of stupid.
Yeah.
It flips the each bit each of the 2 bits around to make the file name right. So it took me a second to get that going. So anyways, we've put our certificate back on. We've installed it, the user certs. So now that we've done step 6, we're going to start it back up, and this will be the last time you have to start the emulator back up. So you really only have to power it back on. What is it, twice?
Right.
So it's going to be turned on in total 3 times. But after this, it's just 4, or 5 if you, or whatever it is, 7 if you want to do the objection FRIDA stuff.
Yeah, and what you're doing by rebooting this every time is you're making sure that the system sees the system cert, and then you're making sure that it sees the Magisk support. So having, that's why you have to restart it, because Magisk requires a reboot, and then you have to start AVD, of course. So there's some additional bits. Yeah, I was about to start asking about FRIDA. FRIDA is just IDA, right, with some FR in the front of it.
I honestly am just a script kiddie when it comes to FRIDA today. I do not know hardly anything about it. I'm going to install some random APKs, split APK installer, AMA's file manager, DuckDuckGo. Game Guardian is the one that is used for like memory, memory shenanigans, where you can change the number from, my help is 55, and then you search for that value, and then you get hit by a squirrel and search for 54, the classic memory searching stuff,
like a game
Lucky
genie,
Patcher,
like a game genie was.
Game Guardian is like, old style Game Genie.
Yeah.
Same thing with like all the console hacking and stuff, where you have your little memory editors, and if you ever use Cheat Engine, same kind of style.
Yep.
So we have some apps installing now, just standard through ADB. And again, it's downloading the latest and greatest of all these. Lucky Patcher, latest and greatest. Game Guardian, latest and greatest, not necessarily. But those are both kind of shifty. Like the Game Guardian is like super shifty, but it's a good proof of concept to look around how some of these it has like already defined config files for certain games.
Right.
So it'll tell you. It's basically how the Windows version, essentially the Windows equivalent is, what is it called? The Windows memory searcher is blanket vanilla. There's nothing in there. But with Game Guardian, there's like all these config files for certain games. Same thing with Lucky Patcher. Lucky Patcher is like it has a component, an offline store, Google Play Store, where you can essentially, like, if there's an app that has an embedded, that has in-app purchases, you can do some shenanigans to make to run your own local app store. So when you run the application and you click the button that says, purchase a new T-shirt or whatever, it will use Lucky Patcher. The store will have a local store, so that all gets forwarded back, and it says, yes, Robert has purchased all of these bells and whistles for whatever this game is. It doesn't work hardly much anymore, but there's the great thing about Lucky Patcher is you can patch out ads inside of a fair amount of apps. So you can I don't know why that's, maybe because it's using SSL pinning. Ooh, they might be using SSL pinning in Lucky Patcher,
which is interesting, because I've seen a lot of issues using the Lucky Patcher, or cert pinning actually causes more problems than it's worth. So
and that's kind of an indication where you can tell something's, I think it's trying to download something when it's SSL pin, possibly. I don't know. But anyways, we've got the cert, it's running, we've got root, we've pushed the cert to the thing. If it works, because you'll start to see, you'll always see traffic of HTTP in the beginning.
Right.
So when Burp Suite's running,
Fucking
right when you turn it
double-click.
on, you'll see here and there, you'll see a couple of ping outs, but all the Android apps that come base have SSL pinning on them. But for example, you should see Magisk in here. But when you start seeing HTTPS, that's when you know you're hooking a
Right.
fair amount of the SSL traffic. So you have your system cert is working.
There's lucky
And you
patchers.
see
I see the lucky patchers there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's almost like it tried to securely download some portion of it.
Yeah.
That's why I want us to try the ADB switching for the proxy, because you can turn it on and off. So I can easily, without having to shut it down, I want to be able to easily turn the proxy on and off, which you might even could do in Burp Suite. But anyways, I'm gonna pick a random one. The fun part about this is that the Frida objection part is like a UI based.
Okay.
So it will.
So does Frida run on the emulator itself, or does it run on Windows and
it runs
hook
both.
in? Okay.
That XZ file I was talking about is a compressed file. It extracts, and then it uploads it to the phone, and then executes that binary on the phone itself. So right now there is a listening service on the Android device itself, that's listening for sockets or connections.
Right.
So when you run it's basically like a PS command, but for Frida, it'll give us a list here of like essentially most, if not all, the apps installed there. So you can just type, like DuckDuckGo or whatever you want to inspect.
Oh, very nice.
And it will have like this little function in PowerShell that will make a UI out of whatever you want. So you can just type whatever app you want to start, click OK. It starts it through objection, and then does SYNKEY, which is like, you shouldn't be able to do SYNKEY commands in PowerShell with like EDR running or any kind of EDR, but you can. And however, for whatever reason, it's not picked up. So that's a kind of interesting little tidbit that I discovered doing this. So we've turned on SSL depinning. We're hooked the application with objection, and now we can kind of go in here and just start poking around and see what traffic we can see. And I'll show you, like, the random game I picked is like some sushi game that runs beautifully. It's a 3D game.
So in the chat window, I've added posts to where you can find Objection, the software, and Frida if you wanted to take a look at it outside of the system here. Bloodbound also says you can run Kali NetHunter on here. I've heard of Kali NetHunter, but I've never used it before. I'm assuming it makes your Android even more bloated than before because it's Kali Linux. But I'm imagining it's for mobile device pen testing or what have you. I haven't had a chance to search for it yet, but I have heard of the name. So there it is. Oh, yeah, it's mobile pen testing platform. So
okay. Yeah. That would be fun to play around with. For me, the next step is, at the end of the day, I want to be able to run most apps and then most games without having that root detection.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, so here's just me searching for BrakeSec. So we're seeing the SSL traffic. We've hooked it. We're seeing all the bits that we need to see.
Very nice.
As far as the traffic. So we're basically
very nice,
more or less done from here. Now it's the cat and mouse game. It's figure out what this APK is doing. How can we use Magisk to bypass the root detection? There's blacklisting in here where you can go and say, okay, I want to turn on the Zygisk, which will help bypass some of that. You talked about SafeNet stuff.
SafeNet,
I didn't get to get into that, but that might be why I'm still getting you have root on this device, blah blah blah. Are you sure you want to continue? This isn't safe.
Right.
It might be, or probably is, part of that SafeNet stuff. So that would kind of be my next step is, how do I go from being able to relatively open up any app and just get past the basic root checks so that I can start testing the app without it, just straight up closing and crapping out on me.
So the other thing I'm thinking about is you're running this in an emulator on a computer that doesn't have a GPS thing. So what happens if some of these apps require fine or coarse GPS bits. I mean, sometimes it'll use the Wi-Fi for a coarse, coarse being COARSE location. Yeah, Lady P said fake GPS. Doesn't work so well for certain games, especially ones that know that you can use fake GPS, like Pokemon Go or anything from Niantic. A lot of people try to spoof GPS on those things, but there are some apps that legitimately need it. Like, I don't know if you wanted to use Uber apps or some shit like that, or Uber Eats or something like that. It may detect that you're in, Sunnyvale, California, when in fact I'm up here in Seattle. It's not perfect. We want to set expectations here. It's not perfect. There are GPS modules you can purchase and plug into your computer, but again, I have no idea. I don't, Robert, I don't know if you can actually plug those.
I would say there is a way, you could probably even use just the straight up GPS stuff inside of, I'm not sharing my screen right now. I'm logging into
no, that's cool.
My Google Play that I use to play around with stuff. So it's a throwaway account, but still, I don't want to. But you were saying, sorry.
Yeah, I was just, it's not going to emulate a phone perfectly, but it will emulate a phone, I think, enough for a lot of folks. Yeah, so Bloodbound, thank you. I know you got to go eat and everything, but appreciate all the good questions and the good feedback and stuff. Lady P says serial GPS units will send legit NMEA messages on Android, NMEA.
Sure, yep.
So, there's options there.
Yeah, as long as you're using probably the legit way to send your GPS, I'm assuming you can spoof it or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, and again, it just matters. I think it just matters how QEMU can connect to those USB devices or peripherals through the windows of the Linux stack in this case. I actually did have a GPS unit at some point. Where the hell did that go? I may have gotten rid of it or something. Back when I was like trying to war drive and stuff, I had one for shits and giggles.
Going back.
Yeah. She's Lady P says that serial units are universally supported.
There you go.
That's cool.
There's your Pokemon Go right there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can install it, but until you run it, and then it's like it will detect or it will close itself automatically and say, jailbreaking detected, et cetera, et cetera. Ingress was the same way. I found that out. Ingress is the second generation game that Pokemon Go's data samples use. For example, Lady P's posted a link to Adafruit.
Stuff. Cute.
Yeah, Adafruit Ultimate GPS with USB 66 channel with 10 Hz updates for $30. Oh, it's a little bitty module. So.
I would assume a game like I would assume a game like Pokemon would be a pretty high barrier to entry. You're probably going to have to turn on all the anti-root stuff, and you're going to have to probably patch the APK to find whatever hook that they're using to detect the thing that makes it not work.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is if I can basically look at the traffic for Pokemon, and if I can modify a game like Pokemon, then everything else is downhill, essentially.
Right,
so if I can, when I was doing the Clash of Clans stuff, I never could get to the point where I could monkey around with a whole lot of any of that because it was hashed. So you get the SSL pinning, but then the payloads are also encrypted, so you have to use something to help decode those payloads, or unencrypt those payloads on top of the SSL pinning, on top of the root detection. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to more complicated stuff. But
would a touchscreen work on it if you had if you had a touchscreen on your laptop or whatever, the touchscreen works? Can you do swipe or UI checks or anything like that? I'm just trying to think beyond security on this. If you were a developer and wanted to, poke around on this,
I'm assuming it's anything the emulator can do. There is some pieces of the puzzle that are missing. For example, I did talk about the missing virtual. The Android Studio has a virtual room you can run around, and you can put barcodes up there or whatever images you want to put up there. And I think you can play videos into it too. Otherwise, you'd
Okay.
have to like write some script or write some kind of application to push images to the camera like API or whatever. But usually
Right.
what I'll do for apps before I start poking with them, I'll clean up the storage and make sure there's no any like it's never been run before is what the state you want, because when you install an app it actually runs it 90%
Right.
of the time. So
Right.
I make sure before I do anything, I make sure what I should do is clean out the app store. You want to completely clean out the app cache for Google Play and all that stuff, the Google framework, Google Play framework. You want to clear all that out and make sure it's all going through Burp Suite before you like start anything you want to poke around with.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So now we're actually ready to run like Frida with the sushi app game.
Yeah. Yeah, because once you
like
get the burp up,
at...
it's just like a website. It's just pretty much like a web server. You want to interrogate the calls. You want to use the site as it, or the app as it's intended. You know, check the APIs. That's one of the things that I remember testing or asking about testing. It was like, you have a mobile app and it's like, well, we have it on iOS, and we're like, okay, great. Is it just like a web app inside of a fancy browser looking thing where the APIs are all called the same? Because if it's just you're pressing a button and it's calling the same API that I can call on the regular website, it's not really an app. It's just like you've got a website with a fancy browser or something like that. So a lot of, you know, what we were asking for clarification was, you know, is it a legitimate app? Or is it a like progressive web app where it's just a fancy browser? If that's the case, then we don't necessarily have to do all of it. Thank you so much, anonymous cheerer. I appreciate you for, you know, doing testing or something like that. You know, where it would save us time, because if it's like we don't have, you know, we've accidentally screwed up our jailbreaking on our iPhone or our Android device, it's going to take us time, and you know, obviously, money is the name of the game here. So we can spend 8 hours trying to re-jailbreak a device, or wait looking for a jailbreak for our iPhone, or we can just test all the APIs that the mobile device calls. Everything else on the progressive web app or the app itself is just window dressing at that point. So what Robert has up now is he's got Sushi Roll 3D, which I've never heard.
I don't even know. This is some random app I picked. Like,
and
I love just picking random apps. Like, what's fun to do is just ask the audience. It's like, hey, what you know, Pony Explorer Plus, and just look at the amount of like traffic and garbage that's being sent.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, I haven't even done anything with the game yet, and there's already been like 4 megs of like traffic just being pushed.
Yeah,
to their
AAX,
site.
Amazon ad system. Yeah, I'm seeing telemetry.sdk.in mobile.
Like,
yeah,
it's gross.
Yeah.
Um,
and that could be a finding too. If you're like, hey, you know, you're a health app and you're pushing a bunch of God knows what to Amazon-adsystem.com or, you know, telemetry. Whatever. If there's telemetry being sent that could be personally identifying to a person, and you could tie those logs for ad logs to application logs, then you could run into some issues. So, yeah.
I'm trying to see there's one post in particular that has like, you know, how many coins you have or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you're buying something through an app and you can, you know, make it cost $3 instead of 12, you're going to be doing quite well. So, this is an app that people use? So we're looking at the Sushi Roll app.
Trying to find the
I don't know
the
what
fancy
I'm
part
seeing
that has
here.
the actual.
Oh my god.
The actual payload. It's almost like the SSL pinning is not. I mean, it's there.
Yeah,
we're seeing it. Once I think I have to actually make some coins or whatever. Whatever first. So maybe
you've got to be rich. Yeah, there you go.
I gotta click a bunch of stuff to get it to actually maybe.
You got some fat loot now in your in your Sushi 3D app. Lose it? No, we don't want to lose it.
Well, if you lose it, if you don't, then you have to click the thing and watch like a 15-minute ad or whatever.
Oh, that's right. It definitely feels like you need to filter some of the stuff that's scrolling through. If ads are not what you're worried about and you're just wanting the telemetry of the app itself, you're going to have to filter some of this stuff out into Burp, because there is a ton of stuff. API, savepromo.net, AAX.amazon-ad system. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. So if you're just wanting the specific application stuff, then you're going to have to, separate the wheat from the chaff in this play. The handset or the Android app is going to be throwing a bunch of shit through your proxy. You also would want to filter that out as well. So
they're all awful. Like, I mean, like apps I've tested that have like geolocation in them, when you're like not even at the resort, they're just like pushing. I'm like, I'm at my house in Atlanta. Why are you pushing coordinates when, I'm nowhere near where you are, type of thing.
Yep.
So,
yep.
But
and this is an example of figuring out what's normal on the system. If you run your Burp suite for a while with no apps running, and it's just basic ideas, then you can start filtering. Go, oh, okay, app to win is the OS itself versus the sushi roll app or something like that. So so you've got objection.exe running. What does it tell you? I saw that it was throwing up some error messages about some things earlier on. What kind of error messages will objection give you that is helpful in testing apps?
So I think
Android 7 Plus not throwing an exception.
Yeah, not throwing an exception. It's like basically telling you that there's not an issue. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So actually, this one, I don't think I need this one anyway. So this is basically saying I've hooked the SSL check trust recursive.
Okay. Everything is okay. Everything is okay.
Yeah,
Everything
it's saying
is okay.
I'm hooking this function. I'm hooking this function. I'm hooking this function. I'm SSLD pinning. I'm SSLD pinning. Which is weird because we would have seen. Oh, here's where it is. Like, I think this is it. Scene done. Identity token. One of these is like,
there's a session ID and a user ID. I saw those.
Yeah, and each one of those gets randomly created when you start the app. You kind of and there's other things like Google Games that I haven't even messed with. So anything that hooks Google Games, or Google whatever their Google Play or whatever it's called, that's its own can of worms. If they're using to track your like top score or whatever, you have to hook their native the Google native stuff.
That requires an OAuth token. Can you lift OAuth tokens? I'm assuming you could. You could lift the OAuth tokens off of this, or
write automation and write whatever plugins you want.
Potentially bypass 2FA as well. You could figure out if it's possible to bypass the 2FA on that. I would hope or think so.
Yeah, I should see. I don't know why I don't see the actual SSL traffic. That's I probably have just like overlooked it like 19 times. But the one you're looking for is like, it says like, tokens equal 128. And the second I modify that is like, the game crashes or whatever. And that's when you get into doing like the memory stuff with these little memory editors, the Game Guardian stuff. You can do memory searching and see if client side you can hook it. If you can't hook it client side, then you try to hook it through the web and work backwards from there.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Cool. That's pretty much it for me. It's really kind of, where you go from here is figuring out what the root detection is, how to get around it, what other stuff that it needs to do to actually run and start seeing the traffic. That's kind of the next step after this. Yeah. But for me, it's, can I run a real app and see some telemetry and see the actual SSL pinning, and how easy is that? Okay, well, I can do it in about 4 minutes. I can spin up, any Windows 10 box. I can be dumping, information and not have to install Python or Java or mess with the host at all. It's all its own environment, and you don't have to worry about mangling your own stuff. But that's the idea.
No, that's great. Not having to install a bunch of crufty applications is like you said, it is a good idea. I would definitely, I would definitely be playing around with that JSON, those JSON blobs, and modifying, especially things like user ID, or, you know, if I could, you know, get that information and lift that off, or impersonate somebody else, like, you know, user installed is some 18-digit number there. If you could, you know, enumerate that or take over somebody else's account that way, you know, God knows how, you know, you can take all, yeah. Just for instance,
for Android, there was one like a Parallax, which is like a Parallax wallpaper program, and I found that you could, you know, had a social aspect where you could create a desktop, a 3-dimensional desktop, and you could upload it, and people could vote on it or whatever, and you could vote for whichever one you liked, and then you could add a friend or whatever. So I did the whole oh, this is my ID. Can I take this ID and have someone else swap the operators? So I'm following you. Can I just swap the operators and have you follow me? Oh, look, great. Now I can force people to follow me, or force people to like my, you know, my desktop thing. So I didn't end up, for whatever reason, you know, I don't understand. My thing just disappeared. My account stopped working at some point. But I like to hope that I got, you know, to the top, you know, the dashboard or whatever for their thing. But that's kind of the extent of it. Is, you know, if you can hack the games, then the bank stuff is sadly easier.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. And, you know, you've got some API keys in there. You know, it wouldn't be hard for somebody to put some hard-coded credentials or something else in there. Yeah. These are definitely, I'm not sure what the API key does, and that may be a finding in a report or what have you. But yeah, this is excellent, excellent information. That looks like alien writing or something. Is it? That one's quite interesting. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
In images, but yeah, all this stuff is just ads. Like, it's analytics and ads and a big huge loop.
Oh yeah,
of disgustingness. So very noisy.
Okay. Does anybody in the stream have any other questions? I do appreciate everybody following and subscribing, and whoever cheered us 100 bits. I appreciate that as well. Thank you for finding value. I know I found value in this. I'm going to be trying this just as soon as I get off of here, because I want to try things on my computer. And you know, that was one thing, because it was like, you know, part of the stream is like trying to find things that are interesting for people to do. And we have some malware stuff coming up, and, you know, I was like, well, I'd like to be able to maybe, you know, analyze some Android device, you know, applications. And I was looking at every emulator out there, and they all just suck ass.
Yeah, they're all.
And yeah, so, you know, this is awesome, and this is something I could definitely see people using. It's fairly lightweight. It's fairly intuitive, fairly easy. I mean, you've taken a complex process and made it easier, which is always helpful for everybody. It lowers the bar, but in a good way, I think. You know, and it doesn't make teaching such a Herculean effort. So for folks who on Jamboree, are you taking donations? How are you supporting yourself from Jamboree? I mean,
it took me like a couple of weeks of, like, you know, nightly just kind of poking with it. But yeah, just people running it is really all I want, is people running it, submitting. I submitted my own bugs, like 19 of my own bugs.
Okay.
So really the best thing people can do is share it, submit bugs, you know, whatever you can do to run it. I actually tried to fix the keyboard thing, and I ended up breaking the whole thing. So, you know, it's more of, you know, if people use it, then I'll make it even more idiot proof as it goes through, and eventually it'll just be like click to pwn. Like, that would be my ultimate goal, but I don't want to do that unless people are actually going to use it. So I have a tendency to go down rabbit holes for a couple of months, and then find out it's like nobody's using it, so I'm not gonna. It works for me. That's all. That's all I care about.
It compiles on my laptop. Yeah. So what do you have an idea of things that you'd like to put in, or are you pretty much at the limit of where you feel like it needs to be? Is there anything else that people have? Anybody made suggestions about what they'd like to see? I mean, it sounds like NetHunter will run on this, so you could put NetHunter on here, but wow, you actually like fix changes and put things in your issue log. What evil is this?
Right.
You call yourself a developer? My God, man.
These are all enhancements I kind of flagged.
Okay.
I haven't looked at Brita. I want like easy, basically easy anti-root detection is what I really want. Build prop
Okay.
stuff. So these are all the features I want, but I'm not going to do unless I need it for work. So
Yeah. No,
I
that's
went
okay.
as far as I can for work, and if I want to, if I want to pop up an APK, um, I'm good. But
Okay.
all these other things, like I want to actually have Lucky Patcher save ARM binaries instead of
Yeah.
x86, because if I Lucky Patch something and then export it, it doesn't do any good because it's a x86
Ah.
APK. So like, there's quite a few features in here that I would like to have, but the main
Okay.
ones are build prop stuff. Any way to click. What would be nice is if I could just have a script that would automatically set up um, all the magic stuff, so that
Hmm.
it would automatically block, configure the deny list for all the play stuff. It would reset all the permissions. It would set up the environment essentially inside of the emulator itself to be all nice and happy, so that Google Play is going to be bypassed. Google Play, all this would be checked automatically. And I think all that stuff is actually in the config for the Magis, but that would be kind of next steps. But really, if you run something and it doesn't work, or you want to talk about a feature or bug, let me know. I'm down for
Yeah.
anything.
Very
Down for
cool. Yeah.
to make it just lower that barrier to entry and get people looking at these god awful apps, because there's not enough people looking at this stuff. It's all just hot garbage.
Well, the problem is there's not a lot of people. I don't know how the mobile device teams are doing them. They're pushing them out in some way, but you know, it definitely needs to be done. If you're a consultant, then this is definitely something that could be used. But it's hard if you found a bug in one of these these applications. It's unless they have a bug bounty or they have a way of reporting that through the app or something like that. It's really hard to find where to report those bugs to them. So I mean, you could play around with them unless it's an app like the game that I showed you, Anders Trail. They have a very active, open source. It's an open source game. You can go to their GitHub and get it too, but not every game or every application has that, or it's like a Salesforce or something like that. And it's like, you
Gross.
can't contact them or something like that.
Yeah.
God forbid. Yeah. Or some god awful CRM product, or, this hotel app, or a hospital app, or a patient portal or something like that. Yeah, it's really hard to do that. So part of that is, I think, before you start doing that research, figure out how you contact them before you start the research. So that way, if you do find issues, you can, definitely reach out to them, other than blowing them up on Twitter or shaming them on a news article or something.
I used to poke around with that stuff. I had the Protron mails where I'd just, I'd be traveling and run into some, dashboard for the hotel or something. And it's like, this thing looks like a pile of hot garbage. I'm bored sitting in my hotel. Oh, look, all the, TVs are broken or something. And then go downstairs and think that the world is ending. And it's just, I broke my TV. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, it's, I mean, it's one of those things that it's just hard to get into, because building the environment is so difficult, and there's so many gotchas and whatnot in that whole process. So
most every app these days will run on. You mentioned it's running on Windows or Android 11. Most apps will run on anything from about 9 above. I think 7. I think Android 7 was where the container stuff came in. It was like a lollipop or something like that, where all the new container stuff came in, where they actually started changing, almost like a Windows XP Service Pack 2 kind of thing, where it was like major new security changes. All of the apps are going to have to change to modify themselves and work this. I think anything, as long as you're running, there are very few apps that won't run on 11 or even down to 9, because there's a lot of handsets out there from third parties that aren't Google that are running, Lollipop or Oreo in this case. So, you're pretty safe. You're pretty safe.
Some stuff still lets you have Oreo, because you get these other countries that don't have the expendable income, and they buy these third-party phones that are they might have
Yep.
Oreo on them. It's like, well, you got to support Oreo. I'm like, great for me, because you could do all kinds of crap in Oreo that you can't do.
Right.
Past Oreo
Yep.
is when they started locking.
The memory enhancements and all those things, are not available on the older versions of that. So yeah. Does anybody in our chat have any other questions? Otherwise, I think we can probably go. I've had a hell of a good time with you, Robert. I think this was awesome, and I'm so glad you reached out and said something, because this is definitely something that everybody should learn. And maybe I'll poke around with this on a couple streams and find an app or two that just look like garbage and kind of learn by doing, if at all possible. So
it's like the hack means. You just go on the Play Store and just like type in
pick one at random.
Yeah, it's just pick one random game, and I've been known to fire up, like, whenever some new restaurant has like a app, I'll fire up an app and just look in there and be like, what can I see? How does their system work, and how does their redemption system work? Is it unique enough? Or can I just put like 999 and like end up with like free donuts or something? It's like, okay, this is not good. Somebody's going to find this. That's not me.
Yeah, Hawksfam's old school. When flashlight and fart apps were all the rage, because phones didn't all have external lights that you could hook up on there, so they turned an extremely bright screen on. And obviously there's been numerous stories about flashlight apps that did more than just flashlights. I saw a talk with Charlie Miller one time. Charlie Miller moved from Android hacking. As a matter of fact, I think he's still banned from Google events and stuff because of his hacking. He had posted on the Play Store a stock trading app, and that stock trading app did some other stuff. He showed them how easy it was to put malware on the Play Store. And so, instead of actually fixing the problem, they just banned the user. So he's unable to do a bunch of stuff. He's been banned as a developer, and he started moving on to car hacking and stuff. But yeah, he was showing at the time, and this was I was still living in Austin. So it was probably 2010, 2012. I mean, this is not new stuff, but, the level of effort to get to testing in an environment is, and Robert's just made it that much easier for us. So I do appreciate that. So, Run it. Robert, how would people find you if they wanted to talk more about Android hacking or testing? We're testing. For enhancements for games.
We're trying to integrate
test integration,
apps.
Right?
Yeah, we're trying to integrate ads into this application. That's why.
Right. We're expanding functionality accordingly. Yeah. How would they find you on Twitter or elsewhere?
Yeah, pretty much just Discord. Twitter, I kind of don't really follow that much, but probably Discord's the best bet. I'm around. Those parts. So, if you have any questions, any bugs, if it doesn't work, let me know. We can set up a quick screen share. I've gotten a handful of people to test it, and I've gotten some feedback from some actual old coworkers. They're like, "Oh, does it do this?" I'm like, "Yes, it's got Google Play, it's got everything." It's like, "Oh, this is awesome, man." I'm like, "Yes, I'm trying to kind of explain that to people, but I can't communicate, and it's such a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche that."
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of people are, like you said, just kind of like, oh wow, we don't need to make this, idiot proof. I know how to do this.
Right.
It's like, no, well, not everybody knows how to do it. Let's make it easy for people to pop this stuff open and play around.
Yep. And your operator with the second O as a 0, and I put that into the stream chat as well. So
sure.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Robert. Yeah, have a good day, and we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Sounds awesome. Bye.